Professor.
Anyone can open up a gym, but building community is what keeps people coming.
Right.
People open gyms and don't define what they're going to
Defining
do.
your community.
Your community, I'm going to buy back your equipment in 3 years.
Live today on Imagine Fitting In with a special guest, good friend, I've come to know as one of the true fitness professionals here in Dayton, Ohio, Mr. Michael Mormon.
Thank you for having me.
Michael, welcome.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to being a part of the podcast and being here with you today.
Nice. It's been a second, right? We've been kind of planning this, right? Took a little minute to schedule.
Did, but all good things are worth waiting for, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I hope it ends up being like Mr. Pacifico, because Larry came in. I'm calling Larry. Larry came in. Shout out to Larry Pacifico. He's like, I don't know if I can. People tell me about this podcast, and he said you should do it, and people were talking about how good your podcast was, and I was like, oh, thank you, Larry. And she's like, yeah, I talked to Giselle, and blah blah blah. And he goes, and plus he's like, I don't know if I had time to do it. And at the end of the podcast, he goes, I'm really glad I did this.
Yeah.
So we had a good time. So shout out to Larry Pacifico.
Absolutely.
Well, Michael, the podcast is all about mentors, healthy lives, and community. Mm-hmm. And this is, I mentioned this many times, this podcast is dedicated to the late memory of my nephew, who we lost to addiction. Quite the athlete, quite the inspirational kid. So in his memory. So I do this to pass it forward, to try to highlight the importance of having mentors in young lives, inspire young lives along the way. Most people, when they hear mentors, healthy lives, and community, if you have, one of my friends said, if somebody says anything negative about those three words, they're just shitheads.
Yeah.
Right? So I like to think that the positive messages coming out are providing these little nuggets, of potential advice, inspiration. When we listen to something here and there, and you're at a particular place in your time of your life, and you're like, oh, I'm definitely going to do it. Or like, oh, maybe I should hesitate doing that right now.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So passing it forward, being there. Sometimes we don't know. We get messages every day about directing us, but sometimes we don't know we're actually being mentored or having that advice or that clicking in. So I'm hoping we get some nuggets. I'm sure we will today.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So again, welcome. And how I usually start is kind of like basically, where were you born? Where you call home today? And, what was family life like? What did your parents do and all that?
Yeah, I grew up, was born in Du Bois, Pennsylvania, little town in northeast Pennsylvania, where my mom hailed from. I have a young mother. She had me just out of high school. So my mom's only 18 years older than me. And then, to start my life, I was kind of raised by my grandparents until I was about 4 or 5. My mom went to Ohio, and she ended up marrying my dad and, kind of getting established here. And then I ended up getting picked back up and moving to Ohio, and pretty much grew up here in Kettering.
Nice.
It's always been a good place for me to call home base. And then I've my businesses, both businesses are in Kettering. I live in Springboro now, but I actually just moved over to Springboro like 2 years ago. I lived in Kettering up until about two to 3 years ago. So I like it here. People I think sometimes give Dayton, Ohio a bad rap, but actually it's a great place to home base out of. It's cost efficient to live here. I don't mind the weather for, people complain about it all the time, but I actually kind of like it.
Right. In terms of just a general Midwest climate change through the seasons. And, we just have to be careful because we don't want to actually get the true secret out too much.
Right.
How fantastic the place is because, in advertising.
Right.
My background's in advertising, right? And Dayton was actually a key place because of the demographics in a location within the country that they would launch and launch market bunch of new products.
Yeah.
And it was the place. Like if it went over here, they would launch it. If it didn't go over, they'd probably
Wouldn't.
It wouldn't. So besides being the home of aviation, you don't know how many people I've run across young kids asking them how the airplane was, who created the airplane. Right. And then, Dayton, Ohio, blah, blah, blah. So we know that also, right? Dayton is like one of the leading top inventions, right? Industry, brain, it's such a brain trust. It's an under-recognized brain trust.
Well, people also have made a parallel of Dayton being kind of the Silicon Valley of the Industrial Revolution.
Oh, absolutely.
It was such a hotbed of invention. Standard Register, Mr. Phrase from here, Mr.
Charles Kettering,
the Wright brothers, and you go on and on. The things that were just developed here. I just recently found out that I think I read that the Cheez-It or one of those weird snacks was actually from Dayton too. The people are from Oakwood that developed it. So, we still have that to our credit as well. But the thing about Dayton too, you're talking about was I think it was Forbes magazine gave Dayton, Ohio, the #1 most cost-effective city in the world to live in like 4 years ago.
Wow.
In the whole, well, I mean, not in the world, but the United States. So
sure.
it's great. But you're saying people finding out about it, but you see the South now getting all the hurricanes, and people are deciding whether they're going to live in Florida. I think that the Midwest is going to be the hotbed in the next 5 to 10 years. That's my real estate prediction.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll see.
All right. I mean, there's a reason why they say if there's like, I think there's right now, if there's like about 8 million people that live in Chicago, and they said it would be 17 million if it wasn't for the winters.
Oh, I agree.
And just like, it's all relative, right?
Right.
But anyway, yeah, so I just imagine like a Cheez-It or something like, it was created by some industrial guy stamp. We're going to stamp these crackers like this, and it's going to call it Cheez-It, and it's going to be these squares, and like everyone's going to look exactly the same.
Exactly. I think it was the Cheez-It, if I'm mistaken, but it was a snack cracker like that. It was actually, I had no idea. And I'm sure somebody will comment and tell me which one it was. But
that was a patented mold, and don't infringe.
But still, the Cheez-It, if it is indeed the Cheez-It, still going strong today.
Okay, so. And so you grew up here, and was your mom a stay-at-home mom, or she worked?
So when we were younger, she stayed home a lot, but she also went to college full time.
Oh, nice.
So she basically. Worked her way and trying to take care of us with my dad, and went through school and ended up graduating from Wright State, and then she ended up going on to Xavier and getting her master's in international business and finance.
Oh wow!
So she was an accountant for majority of her career, but sadly she became very mentally ill in her mid 40s, early to mid 40s, and I've actually taken care of her for many, many years. I'm her guardian. So my mom's only 66. She's not very old because she was very young when she had me. But unfortunately, mental health plays a big role, and especially today. But back then, I don't think it was as nearly talked about in the 80s and the 90s. But she's doing well. She's happy. Kind of loopy, but she's happy as could be, and really that's the only thing that matters these days.
Exactly.
My dad was he was in computer science. I worked for Mead company downtown many years. I was with him for a period of time when it was Mead Westvaco. I think he worked his way up to chief technology officer, and then he worked for a few other companies after New Page and a few others after Mead had moved to Connecticut with Westvaco, and he retired a few years ago. So definitely diverse careers with the parents.
My Aunt Kathy, shout out to my Aunt Kathy Payne. She worked at Mead for quite a few years.
Oh, okay.
I think it was. I'm not sure if it was in their legal. I think she was a legal secretary or secretary for somebody at the Mead Corporation.
Okay.
I believe, for a number of years.
Yeah.
So Mead, it rings in my ears here.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, Mike. Like when you were a kid, like you mentioned your mom and her accounting and finance and stuff and business. So obviously the gene pool was there. It's there. I can obviously because you're a business owner, an entrepreneur. When you were a kid, do you have a childhood dream? Did you like have any kind of vision and any kind of like initial dreams?
I got into when I was a younger kid. I was overweight until probably about seventh grade, and I just body image and just not feeling good about yourself was something that I struggled with when I was young. And then one day I just decided that I was going to do something about it. So I started running around the block. And then I tried to run around the block twice, trying to lose weight in the summer between my seventh and eighth grade years. And lo and behold, I dropped a bunch of weight. I'm like, ooh, this really does work. I started cleaning up my eating.
Yeah.
And then about the age of 13, I got really addicted to weight training. And that was kind of my way as a mental release. I just had weights in my basement and just banged up our floor. And I'm sure my parents were happy about that. There's chips all out of the concrete. And I just weightlifted. That was just what I did. So I fell in love with exercise at a very young age.
Right.
And I loved the way that it changed my body, the way that it made me feel.
Yeah.
So I was very lucky at a young age to know exactly where I wanted to go in life. Because a lot of kids you see nowadays, they go to college, right? And then they just kind of putz around and they're like, what degree should I study? What should I do? And then they get whatever. It's the easiest one to get their credits. And then they get into a career. Sometimes they just hate because it's what they can make money doing with their degree.
Right.
So I think the good Lord above every day that I knew exactly I wanted to go into fitness, into something that changed people's lives. So that's what I did. So I felt very blessed for that.
I got to tell you, because that age that you became interested in that was around the age 11, 12. I began to gain weight. I was sharing this on the other episode. I was an incredible wide receiver on street ball. And I had my neighbor who was a pitcher in baseball, and he could throw targeted footballs, right? And I was young, I was lean, and it could move, and I just loved going off that long ball, right? Anyway, for whatever reason, through emotions, experience, or whatever, I began to gain weight at about 12, and then it was from about 18 I got the juice in terms of taking a weight training class at Sinclair.
Yeah.
So, and it's like, it's so independent. I played Pee Wee football in fifth grade. It was okay, but at the time, whatever distractions, it didn't really fit for me. I'm a very independent person.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so we have that kind of in common. And again, that, like you said, it gave you a perspective and a grounding and a kind of a foundation that both made you feel better, empowered you, and was able to transfer some of maybe that excessive energy that we have as we're teen years to channel that to something positive. I did that a little bit later. So you were there. You get all inspired. You're lifting weights at home. So what school did you go here in the area?
I went to Fairmont, Kettering schools. I went to Prass Elementary, went to the junior high, Kettering Junior High, and then last at Fairmont. So I actually was a product of the Kettering City school systems, kindergarten through 12. And then, I ended up going to Wright State for a few year or two, and just college wasn't for me, man. There was a lot about it that I learned better through world experience.
There you go.
I make my own path in life, and I decided that I was going to do that, So what I decided to do was start getting my personal training certification. I think my first one was IFPA. I don't even know if they're still around anymore, but this is in like 1995, 1996. Sure. And I decided that I'm going to get in the fitness industry. So I ended up getting my certification, and then, like a lot of people, and especially in the mid '90s, it was it's not like it is today. Like, it was starting to get popular,
right?
But now it's kind of overblown. So I started working for the Bally Total Fitness Company. That's what you did. They're the largest gym chain. That's
right.
How you started in your career.
That's where everybody was going.
Everybody was going to Bally's. That was the big dog at the time, and I worked there for about 2 years. And about late 98, 99, I just realized that I wasn't helping people. What they do is they get you on as a trainer. They make you sell these large personal training packages they were outrageous in the late 90s. And you're like, they can finance them. And it never made sense to me. I'm like, why are people just want to work out? Why are they financing their fitness? Like, why don't they just do it like a massage therapist or any other service related and just pay at the end of the service? And I knew why. Because that's where you pay for a 50,000 square foot high dollar mega facility. You
Right.
have to get high dollar commitment on memberships, personal training, or any other service, you know?
Yeah, and they just figured that, okay, when it first launched, lifetime memberships was the deal.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, now we have this personal training.
Right.
And then they're going to do the same kind of template to try to convince people to put down a bunch of money,
Right.
commit, and you know how people waver sometimes, right? So that's
Right.
like, oh my gosh, that was a joke after a while, right? The lifetime memberships, trying to sell your lifetime membership or some kind of stuff.
And Ohio banned that.
Yeah.
They, after I think in the early 90s, they banned it. You couldn't sell you couldn't
Right.
deem it lifetime.
Consumer production
Right.
shit. You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like selling ice to an Eskimo. It's like, or a piece of land in in the North Pole. It's like, you can't term it that and be realistic about the commitment. So
Right.
yeah.
Did you play sports in school at all?
I played baseball throughout my whole life, kind of off and on growing up. And then just pretty much through high school, I started focusing on the weight training.
Okay.
That's where I felt I would run for my cardio. I would do like 5Ks, those kinds of things, turkey trot, those kinds of things locally, just for fun. But the weight training is where I really accelerated at, and the strength. I just loved it because it was just me against myself and against gravity.
Right.
Like I wasn't in competition with anybody else. It's either
Right.
I was going to lift that weight,
Right.
or I wasn't. So I liked that. It was clear and cut, black and white.
Nice. So, was there any individual, particular, even teachers along the way, elementary or high school, that influenced you or supported you or recognized you?
I would say not so much. I did love my 5th grade teacher. He just had a really great way of just communicating with each individual student and relating to them and being able to teach and making sure you got the message. And I think that's part of what makes a good teacher, is being able to be the chameleon with the students to relate to each one, to relay the message, because everybody's different. Some people are visual learners, some people are audio learners, some people just don't learn at all or don't choose not to. So his name was Mr. Wetz. He ended up dying.
Mr. Wetz?
Wetz, Mike Wetz. And he ended up, I believe, dying about 15 years ago. He was a heavy smoker of lung cancer.
Mike Wetz, God bless.
Yeah, God bless him. But he was probably the one teacher I liked the most growing up. But I'd say, of people that kind of influenced me when I was young, I would say my parents really.
Nice.
My dad really, and I've told him this, he was... I don't want to say he was a tough dad, but he also let me make mistakes. He wasn't like you see a lot of parents now that kind of protect their kids, mow the lawn in front of them, make sure the grass is smooth
Right.
and green. He would give me advice and tell me how things were going to get tough if I didn't do certain things, and they can get tough for me.
It's almost like, you hear that term, helicopter parents or whatever.
Yeah.
But being able to go, yeah, okay, this is what you can do. Go do it. And we're going to let you fall on your face and make mistakes in a safe manner so you can learn your lesson. And you're not going to be hovering over you. But I will go back to your teacher. I think it's interesting because I believe a good teacher, and what probably made you feel that about him, is I'm assuming, this is a theory, I'm assuming, I don't know him, but I'm assuming that he had ability to make you comfortable enough and acknowledge to you that he recognizes you, and he's understands you. And so as a kid, right? Like, number one, if you feel that they don't really get you, or they're not really recognizing you specifically, and making whatever his tricks were, that sticks in your brain.
Right.
He obviously did that more frequently than just you, probably multiple times. And so then you have a variety of how many kids are going to be able to affect. Some kids maybe not get through, some kids score with, but with that template, I'm sure he was a successful teacher.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like, hey, you got to play to win, right? So it's in the numbers. If you got a decent game and you're sharing it, those who are going to want to play, or like, I'm assuming from a human psychology standpoint of the development of the kids, like, oh yeah, I like him. He seems like a nice guy, and then you can go from there. And then everything he says to you, you're going to take it with a grain of salt, but also like kind of be inspired, like, okay, there's some credibility there because I've got a relationship with already.
Right.
It's all about the relationships, right? I mean, we know that in, business and life and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So, now tell me, so you're in school, you graduate from high school, you're working for Bally's, you're in the fitness. Where did it sounds like you're putting your focus in your teens in like into your 20s in that fitness career. So when did you decide, like, have these entrepreneurial kind of ending, notions?
Yeah, with Bally's, I decided that there was a better way to do this. Like, I wanted to help people get in shape and be a better version of themselves and help them just have a better quality of life. And at Bally's, I was literally just selling personal training packages to basically give to other trainers. I was just being a salesman.
Right.
And I was like, this is not what I want to do.
Did they train you to sell those packages, or did you were at that point in time where you were just so wanting to help people that you just got in line, sold those packages, and then did you also train people with the packages you sold?
I as I progressed, they kept putting me into management, and I became operations manager, and then basically they took me off the floor to sell and manage. And that's not what I wanted to do because, my passion and what I got into this industry to do was to help and better people, not to take money. So I decided to start becoming a contractor. I'd start my own business, and in 1998 I started using the name Absolute Fitness Personal Training. So I started doing that as a way I started marketing that company to start building my own clientele. So I started doing that, and I started contracting and using the gym up in used to be a gym up at Branton Chambersburg, World Gym used to be up in Huber, and I would train my clients there. I would pay them a gym fee, and I would start building the clientele, and that's where the snowball started. So then I decided, as my clientele built, that I needed to look at opening my own place. And that started in about 1999, where I started the process of opening my own facility. So I decided the training was paying my bills. I was still trying to build clientele, but I needed more money. So I started, a friend of mine whose dad worked in printing. And he got me into a printing company here in Dayton, and I started becoming what's called a press helper. So I started helping the guy that ran these giant commercial printing presses. Basically, I loaded paper. Basically, I did all the bitch work.
Grunt work.
Yeah, absolutely. I was dirty. I was covered in ink. I smelled. I was loading paper.
Bring this young buck in here. We got a job for him.
Beat my butt. Yelled at me. God bless him. He actually was a stepdad of one of my best friends. His name was Dave Muehlman, who got me into that. He actually just passed about a year or so ago. God bless him. But he rode me hard and taught me the proper ways to do that. So in a way, Dave Muehlman, shout out to him, was a big inspiration of making me a little bit better as far in that trade. Get the job
done, mentor.
So I started working in printing. I would train during the day, sleep, and then go work my printing job. And most of the time, when I first started, I was on second shift. But almost the rest of the time, I in my tenure in printing, I was on third shift.
Oof.
11 to 7. So as I started building the money up, I started buying gym equipment through the newspaper classifieds, and I also started finding them, I don't know if you remember the old Trading Post. It was like
sure.
It was a $2.50.
Absolutely.
It was like a classified. So I would start buying commercial gym equipment from the Trading Post and mostly from the newspaper, and then I would buy the equipment and I would start rebuilding it in my one-bedroom apartment. And I would literally take the machines apart, sand them down in my living room, put tarps everywhere, and I would paint them and bake the paint in the oven. I'm sure, I'm sure the EPA should have probably been called.
You're lucky you didn't have a fire or something.
Oh yeah, I could tell you some very very gangster things I've done in my life, and we'll get to that. But anyway, I ended up would rebuild the machines, and I had a storage unit. Then I would they're disassembled, pull them out of my one bedroom apartment, put them in like my '86 Buick, and like drive them over to the storage unit to store for future use.
Oh my gosh!
And this continued on till about 99, 2000. And
you had a vision.
I did. I actually started the initial business. I started dating a girl who was part of the initial business. She was also a Pilates instructor, which is weird because my wife is a Pilates instructor. So this Pilates was big back then. But we ended up kind of opening the first gym together. This went on till about 2000.
And where was that first gym?
The first gym was at 1916 East Whip Road. It's right at the corner of Hewitt and Whip Road. It was a 1,100 square foot space. Opened that in March of 2001, maybe January, February of 2001. And I only signed a 1-year lease. And they asked me why I only wanted to sign a 1-year lease. I said, because if this goes right, I'll need a bigger space. And they did it. They signed a 1-year lease. And of course, when you're 22, 23 years old, like you can't get financing. No one wants to give you a lease because they think you're a flake. Like so.
Plus, you're in the gym business.
Yeah, I got no at every turn, like literally. But I was determined not to take no for an answer. So we ended up opening the first gym in early 2001, and then I ended up buying out the girl I was dating who kind of went into it with me. She invested a little bit of money into it. I bought her out within like 8 months of opening it. The relationship went south. Best thing I ever did. Sent her packing, and then I took the business and moved it to Clio Road in Centerville, and I doubled the square footage. So I was in Clio Road for a good chunk of time. So slowly over the years, when I started the actual physical brick and mortar of Absolute Fitness, it has continually grown to where we're at today. So I've moved it actually 4 times over the past 23 years.
Go ahead and share that address. Where's the current Absolute Fitness?
2537 Wilmington Pike, directly across the street from the old Six Pet Adoption Center. About just down the street from the Wilmington and Smithville interchange. It's a 6,400 square foot private building that used to be a video store. Video stores make great gyms. So do auto parts stores. And
okay, just that kind of
open floor concept.
Open floor concept.
Yeah, open floor. So do I've been looking at maybe another location in the future, but also Rite Aids. I've been looking at the Rite Aid buildings because they're 12,000 square feet. And they're wide open.
They're going out a bit. I mean, all these pharmacies, right? Everywhere. You heard about Mark Cuban, right? What he's doing.
I did not hear.
Mark Cuban is is revolutionizing pharmaceutical drug delivery. And the distribution of pharmaceutical drugs, making them more cost efficient, and who knows what heads he's going to butt into. But I think that's evolving where if you really think about it, when you went to the drugstore, right, the pharmacy was the epicenter of the monetary, and then they put in all the magazines and the candy and all this other stuff, the facial whatever products. But now we know between Amazon and the way that cost effective they're always trying to cut costs where they overwork pharmacists. Like now it's probably going to be all A pretty soon. Once that AI person, technology understands this history of a record of this person to re-up their prescription, right? It's kind of no-brainer.
Right.
But getting back to that floor plan, obviously, way technology working so fast, it's interesting because we're in a human being community, real people get together business, right? A service, right? And I have been, I've been at Mike's place for a little bit here now, and it's been very highly enjoyable bringing my clients there. Absolute Fitness is probably the best thing I've experienced here in Dayton in terms of both a facility for me as a private trainer and as well as somebody that's really serious about getting where they need to go and getting the proper kind of support and guidance and coaching. So tell me, so obviously it sounds like when you were in the corporate valleys, whatever, of course, it's like if you can sell volume and then like we want you to be right, we can depend on you. We want you this management. You're not there. You go and say, okay, I know I see all the big picture. Open your own place. Now, how has that evolved you as a trainer over the years? Like, going now having your own place. What's some lessons or how have you evolved?
Well, as I've evolved, just as a trainer and as a business owner, I mean, it's all about adapting to the experiences that you things you learn about yourself and others along the way. And society and business and training modalities are always changing. But I'd like to say is like as a trainer, I look at all the things that I would focus on with people back in the 90s, and the modalities and the I think back in the 90s, I think you'd agree to this too. A lot of times, I think a lot of trainers were too focused on just nothing but strength training. It was like fitness and bodybuilding was like the big thing in the 90s. Everybody wanted to, they did it for, I want to be vain and I want to look good. And then now as I've gotten older as a trainer and evolved over the years, it's like there's a lot of ways to get from point A to point B, and there's a lot of modalities and there's a lot of things and components of fitness that all need to be worked on, not just the strength training part. And that's what I was so focused on when I was younger, because you're a young buck and you want to lift and be
Absolutely.
Yeah. But then as I've gotten older and I've worked with older clients and different types of clients and got more data points, you've got to look at not just resistance training, but functional training, mobility, stability, endurance. There are so many other training that needs to be done to complete the whole pie. And I think that when I was younger as a trainer, I focused on one slice of the pie.
Sure. Because it was there was a demand for those big pieces of pie
Yes.
that you could provide those people looking for that, like this is what I need to do.
Right.
Cut and dry. Strength, they heard cardio, strength and cardio. And I will just comment on that because you're absolutely right in terms of when people talk about strength, they still today, it's like, oh, you're doing strength or cardio. Well, then you have the concept of cross training and blah, 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 right? And we know how in marketing and advertising that message comes across. And way back in the day when I first, you started in like what, 96?
96.
I started in 92. Mm-hmm. And back in the day, it was all about the two words that I was taught by a kinesiologist. It was all about functional fitness.
Right.
And then, and I was in advertising at the time, making a transition into fitness.
Right.
And it's about advertising. Well, keep it simple, stupid. Let's just call it core. We're going to do core work.
Right.
All right. And so functional fitness fell off, and people they hear the word core, but they still hear the word strength and cardio. And they're like, I need to work on my core. So how many times have you heard, and I hear this all the time, I don't necessarily understand how to get my core stronger.
Yeah, all the time.
And that gets back into what you talked about, the functionality of all the muscles, and it's not just these surface muscles.
Right.
So you get into that, my background. When I first started, I was certified with the American Council on Exercise, and then I took the next level and did National Academy of Sports Medicine.
Right.
And then, through hard work and like not always like totally confident, but thinking like, okay, could I actually create a program and pitch it to NASM and then accept it so I can actually, in terms of balance, because I got really on the juice of balance, and not just balance of standing on one foot, but the balance of power. Mm-hmm. And so how do we get that strength, right? When people have certain kinds of strength, you can have crazy kinds of certain types of strength, but how is that it can basically put your body out of balance. Mm-hmm. And it's like you repeat anything too much over time, right?
Exactly.
You get really good at that, but not a whole lot more.
That's right.
So now we have this aging population, blah, 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 right? All the time, the money spent, whatever, and realizing that function. And so, it was only like maybe 2009, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal, American Medical Association, whatever, saying, balance. And people have no clue where to start with that.
No.
And they're still holding on to cardio, and so you're either doing cardio or strength. And then that's why all the yoga, the Pilates, right, mm-hmm. which is great, awesome. Kinetic awareness and stuff and sports performance. You've trained baseball players. So it's all about that happy medium and understanding where's your weakest link. Mm-hmm. And let's try to improve that while we engage you and educate you.
Yeah.
So in terms of like, are you? We all expect in the fitness industry. There's trends and there's hot things, but especially now social media, we're getting all kinds of crazy shit thrown at us in terms of like what's going to work or whatever. And it's just classic. Like this time of year, all the commercials come out. What do you see any fitness trends? I mean, you with your other company, you buy and sell fitness equipment. You utilize that for your own clubs. You stay ahead of the game. I want to compliment you on that because the facility there is unbelievable. You have every button and bell and whistle of really cool functional stuff. But where do you see the fitness going? Based on what you've seen, where do you think? I mean, what do you think about like these large box clubs that still exist? I'm not sure. Are they going to? What do you think? Where are we going? What do you think?
Well, it's funny because as the gym has evolved over the past 20 plus years, and about 2017, I started a second company called Blockbuster Fitness Equipment, where I buy and sell pretty much where most of my equipment comes from is college and municipality fitness center upgrades. But we have seen a fair number of gym closures that are starting to happen. Not so much. Some of us, actually, I take that back. Some of which we've seen. Some of the, FitWorks was big around here.
Right.
I think I've bought out about 5 locations.
I used to work there.
Yeah, about 5 of them I've bought out, and they're starting to. I think maybe I have like 2 clubs left in Cleveland.
Yes.
But now we're starting to see the big box gyms. I think LA Fitness changed and rebranded to Asporta.
Right.
Now they're rebranding back to LA Fitness.
Are you serious?
Yeah, go look at every one of the locations. They're putting the LA Fitness banners over the Sporta signs. And,
wow.
and I don't know what that's about, but I think from what I've gathered is that you've got Planet Fitness coming into the industry, right? And they're growing like bacteria. Like they everywhere. Grocery store goes out, bam, it's a Planet Fitness. In Springboro, where I live, they just smashed a Planet Fitness where the GAC Fitness Club was. I mean, they just go in like crazy. And I think these big box gyms are having a hard time competing with Planet Fitness. So I think that's why that LA Fitness changed to a Sporta, because I believe they also changed their price point to try to compete with that. Because when you're running a 50,000 square foot mega facility, it's about numbers. You have to oversell your real estate. You have to, because if everybody shows up, you can't service them all. But you look about Planet Fitness, and this is why I think that the fitness industry is changing with the large box gyms. I think there's going to be Planet Fitness and then small boutique. Because Planet Fitness they figured something out. They looked at human psychology and they said, okay, majority of the fitness population are weekend warriors.
Yeah.
Right? They're not particularly people who are super routine into fitness, but they want to get in shape, but maybe aren't ready to take that step yet. So what they did is they started their memberships out at $9.99 a month. So the price point was stupid cheap.
Right.
Stupid cheap.
You could not walk away from that.
Well, you can't walk away from it, but even now their price point's like $15.99. So it's like, with inflation, it's like not going to Subway once a week. It's not going to make or break your car payment.
Right.
But then this is where they got smart, because they realized where their population, where their customer base was. They took all the muscle heads out of the gym, all the destructive. They tear up your equipment. And how they did that is they don't have any barbells over 65 pounds. They have no Olympic weights to use other than on a Smith machine. They have no barbells, benches, no Olympic benches, none of that.
Oh, wow. Just all machines? And small little weights?
Well, they have selectorized weight machines, Smith machines with plates.
Yes.
They have fixed barbells, I think, to 65 or 70. And then they have dumbbells, I think, go to 70s or 75s. So they don't go above that.
Keeps it clean and limited, like in a set range.
Well, they keep the most destructive on your equipment demographic out. And that's the bro science bodybuilders. They're going to bend your dumbbells. And I see this because I get this kind of equipment back to my shop all the time.
Oh, wow.
They destroy your stuff. They don't care. And that's the majority of that demographic. So they now effectively, because they don't have that kind of equipment that they gravitate towards, have taken that completely out.
Don't have to replace it. It's not a thing anymore.
So what they did is they put a bunch of cardio in for the cardio prince and princesses. Love the cardio with machines that are safe. And then they made the price point too cheap to
not
not go.
Yeah.
And then to top it off, they serve pizza like on Tuesdays.
Oh my
so,
goodness.
So if you go get your free slice of pizza 2 times a month, you've justified the $15. And so if you think about it, and then I'm sure that they have, they for the longest time they had to buy the equipment from one manufacturer, but now I'm pretty sure they buy so much equipment as a group that they probably get this stuff for.
Are they going? They probably going into business. They probably like their investors are probably in that field of play, right?
Yeah, I mean,
would imagine.
I imagine there's some dealings with equipment manufacturers.
Sure.
In
How
there,
could you keep cutting, right? Everybody's making money.
Right.
To who's what? Okay, follow me.
And I don't know the statistics of what
Yeah.
the average Planet Fitness has per memberships per
Right.
location, but I imagine it would blow your mind if you knew it.
Isn't Planet Fitness the one where they say no grunting?
Yeah, the clunk alarm. See, again,
Alarm?
The clunk alarm. You're keeping the big roid guys out that destroy
Right.
the equipment. So they're effectively keeping a demographic out that destroys your stuff on a regular basis. And again, nothing against those people, but I see the equipment that comes back, bent dumbbells, 100-pounders bent, and this is because people throw them. They don't.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and so Planet Fitness is now taking the large gym market over because they have now effectively created a price point and a
That you can't
demographic that will continue to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's small boutique gyms, which are like me, that are going to be more customer service oriented for the people who want a little bit more than just the purple equipment.
Okay.
The Barney, I call it.
That leads into the next question. Like, what plans are yours to evolve the business your business in the future?
So as you know, we've done I think we have a great group of trainers at the gym and definitely a great group of clientele, very diverse, and that's one thing I love about the gym and Absolute Fitness.
And I've experienced that firsthand, for sure.
And all the friendships and the community that's been built. So my whole focus is to get all of my trainers who all have different strengths all on the same page so we can share amongst the clientele base to really provide many different types of specialties and share amongst those so that the client gets the best fitness program that is absolutely possible with the best expert for what they need done. Everybody is different. When I do a consultation, majority of what I see when people start are just general weight loss. I don't know how to use my gym.
Right.
And this is where we're going to expand Absolute Fitness because a lot of the consultations I get, people are like, I joined a sport or Planet Fitness and I don't know what I'm doing. And I can almost script the workout. They get on the treadmill, the elliptical, and they hit the big green quick start button.
Right.
And they do 20 minutes. It's almost always 20 minutes. Okay. And then they go I go in the weight room and I do some of these and some of these.
Yeah.
And they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
And then they don't get anywhere. And then they get frustrated. And that's how you pay for a mega facility. They continue to take the $15.99 out of your account and you don't come back. And that's why they don't want you to know. So people are coming in and they're like, I just want to learn how to work out.
Right.
And that's where we start a lot of these clientele from. And this is kind of where we want to develop the trainers, is where we can take them from the beginning stages. We have a great program called Get Fit 101 that I've been doing for years, how it teaches people in a systematic approach how to basically put exercise programs together and use weight equipment. And then we reassess them after that and say, okay, let's maybe go to Greg for some balance and mobility. Let's go to, maybe you need some Pilates. Maybe we need some need some of that, and be able to assess those clientele to make them complete. Because as we talked earlier in the interview here, fitness is so many different components,
Right.
and we need to just get everyone on the same page and really provide the absolute best that we can for these clients. I would love to expand the company to the South Market, into the Centerville, Springboro area. So that's kind of my goal in the next year or two, is kind of poke into there and continue to grow our wonderful trainer base.
And when you say that Get Fit 101, you're kind of you're still carrying that torch from that kid that was selling memberships, saying no, we need to provide another kind of avenue and choice and vehicle for the average person to kind of break the ice, make them feel comfortable, Give them that basics framework and get them inspired to say, wow, if you show them that success early, besides any potential distractions that may come along during that process, they have had that experience. It's in the bank in their mind psychologically and physically.
Yep.
So we know how life things happen. You move, you whatever, do this or that, and you focus your attention. But just to have that initial experience where they've never probably experienced before, and we see that time and time again, where believe me, if you get to a point where you're selling, give them a piece of pizza, it's like, okay, all right. So that's just kind of like a continuum of the masses. But then those people that obviously come and find your club, and you found obviously success because you've grown and you've had multiple locations, you're still at it. You see growth potential. I see growth potential. And that when you're really delivering the goods to what, the reason why they first walked in the door, and if it feels welcoming and you have ability to grow in that community, which I love as well, which I try to, help complement myself with my presence and some of my clients there, to create an energy of not this typical energy of, oh, we're in a health club, whatever. You're on that machine, you're too much, whatever. It's more like pleasantries and, hey, we're all here looking for an end goal, feeling good, and having that community, which is great. It's fantastic. Anyhow, you can promote that as opposed to that coldness and that large experience,
Well, it's about community.
Yeah.
And I tell, at my other company, Blockbuster Fitness Equipment, I sell fitness equipment to other gym owners locally and then all over the world, really. And I see, and it's interesting because I remember when I started my facility, and like I said, after I opened the first brick and mortar place, I continued to work 2 careers and that night shift printing job for 10 years while I saved money to continue to build the facility. So I made my own path by outworking everyone, is what I did. But at the same time, during that time, I learned so much about myself. And when people are opening their facility, I always tell them, and they're kind of the initial stages, I always tell them, enjoy the struggle. And they look at me like I'm crazy. And I said, especially the young kids, I said, you're going to learn so much about yourself working another career to save money and sleeping on your couch in your office. I said, enjoy the struggle because one day you're going to miss it. Now, my point of kind of going through that circle is that now I remember what it took to get to where we're at today. And I see these young guys going to buy gym equipment from me. And I look at them, and I can always tell whether they're going to be successful or not because I ask them kind of like, so why are you getting into this industry?
Right.
Kind of what's going on.
Get to the heart and bones of it.
And one thing I tell them, going back to what we're saying to community, they're like, well, we're going to buy all this equipment. We're going to open up a place. And I said, okay, what's going to make you different than everybody else? And they're like, well, we're going to open up this gym. I said, you can't be successful with the Field of Dreams business plan. Build it and they will come, especially in the fitness industry. You're competing against Planet Fitness, Esporta. They're going to just whoop your ass. Okay?
Right.
You're not going to beat them. And they kind of look at me like, whoa, I never thought of that. And I was like, anyone can open up a gym, but building community is what keeps people coming.
Right.
And that, to your point, community, it's experience.
I read a book way back, and it was called The Experience Economy.
Yeah.
And that, that's what, like, self-liked minds, right?
Right.
That you're there's a lot of people that are just so like, oh, that weekend warrior you mentioned.
Yeah.
About like going out there and feeling like I went and got that hit. I went and did that here and there. It's almost like an offshoot thing of like, oh yes, what do you want to do? Let's just go to the gym for the day. And then it's not necessarily a continual component of a specific plan for, in terms of if somebody has a physical issue or have like discomfort and pain and whatever, but you're more targeted in delivering. And so after a while, it's like you just mentioned, that kid with the opening of a gym, they will come. It's like, wait, you're going to have to make sure that you're of those people that do have need and looking for a community. You got to be able to deliver that because, like you just said, you're not going to be able to compete with that average Joe.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much pizza you can afford to deliver to your clients at the door.
It's exactly. Exactly. And there are places that are, that have their that are gym in the gym industry. There are you got to find out what your core group of clients or customers are going to be. And like I said, Planet Fitness has gotten the biggest part of that. The general fitness population who are weekend warriors. And then you do have the little gyms, and the ones that are successful. One is a great gym up north, Hybrid Fitness, David Scott, friend of mine. He has a great gym up there where he has went to more of the serious lifter. Okay, he handpicks all of his equipment. It's a large place, fantastic facility, where it's more towards the serious lifter. And again, what I said earlier about the serious lifters at Planet Fitness.
Yes.
There's no disrespect to those people, but you got to watch and make sure your equipment is taken care of. But Dave Scott has single handedly really gotten into the market and really gotten a nice serious lifting gym in there. He's got a good community of people up there. But they have things like posing rooms and those kinds of things are going to be more of the bodybuilders, and those kinds of things are specialty. But what he's done has been successful. He has created the community and the niche clientele.
Yeah.
So that he'll be successful because he's defined what his gym does.
Right.
People open gyms and don't define what they're going to do.
Defining your community.
Your community, I'm going to buy back your equipment in 3 years is what's going to happen.
Right.
Okay. And unfortunately we see a lot of that, but you got to define it out. And that's where it is.
You can do that big general broad stroke with mass, right? The mass swap of money and we're just going to continue to take you on. And that's how it was actually almost created back in the day when the health club, right? You had racquetball clubs and you had, you had racquetball clubs. What was it? The blend of racquetball clubs. And then all of a sudden these exercise equipment came out, these machines and stuff, and all of a sudden they blended together and they called it a health club.
Yeah.
And, all the step aerobics and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, okay, come. Right? It's exciting, isn't it? Experience. And then we've seen these waves, right? Now, how many times has gone over all the masses and all the way to pizza? I would never thought pizza would come into play at the very end. But like you said, right, getting down to these boutiques, target marketing, community, and shoot, that's great because obviously those guys that are serious about competing and whatever, that's definitely a niche, niche.
And it's a community.
Yeah.
And that's great. And again, fitness, everybody in fitness, there's different ways to reach people, and I love it no matter what it is, whether you're into bodybuilding or you're just a general weekend warrior. At the end of the day, exercise is important for everybody, no matter whatever reason that you do it.
Right.
I think Nike said just the best, just do it. Whatever it is that you want to do, physically, go do it. It doesn't matter what it is. So I like when I see those types of and to be honest with you, I lift in my own gym and I love my gym. But I do when I go out of town. I like finding those hardcore, more lifting gyms, the older equipment.
Sure.
It's
almost inspiring.
It inspires me because that's where my roots came from.
Right.
But there's something for everybody.
Yes. I, my own personal experience, Arnold, I shared this in Larry's episode about when I was a kid and I, of course, and Arnold was big, whatever. And I'm like, okay. I remember going to Sinclair and going to a weight training class and seeing some guy lifting, like, oh, that's what I want.
Yeah.
So I went after it, and then Arnold had this quote where I saw in the Rolling Stone magazine one time. He said, if it means enough to you, you'll make it happen. Just
Absolutely.
like you said, just do it, right?
Right.
If it doesn't happen, obviously it doesn't mean that much to you.
Right.
It's not that important. But, where I got the bug was all of a sudden – I'm in 10 years into, I'm working in Chicago as a graphic designer in the advertising. And I found myself not satisfied of selling all the garbage that I didn't participate in. And I had the good fortune of being recognized for my enthusiasm. I was working out for about 10 years on my own and being all Arnold concepts, buff, whatever, all the strength training. And I met the physiologist and the kinesiologist, which I went to work for, the kinesiologist. And they're like, one of the first things they said to me is save your joints.
Right.
So, here I am now at 61. through those experiences, I've come to understand that one of my funniest lines, I have to share this with you, Mike, because you'll appreciate it. When I first became a trainer, I was still in advertising, and I was so enthusiastic about it. I used to tell people, watch for me in the funny papers,
Ha.
because I wanted to try to think that I could actually try to flip the fitness industry on its head. In terms of what I saw was like what you saw, a lack of service, a lack of execution. There's a huge facility in Chicago, 107 foot indoor rock climbing wall downtown Chicago. This is like mega off Michigan Avenue. We had a basketball, 7 floors, basketball full court next to a Fairmont Hotel. The visiting NBA teams would come in to play the Bulls. They would stay at the Fairmont. They'd come over and practice. And it ends up, I don't know if this was by design, but Michael Jordan would come in with his trainer because the owner of the club, he was giving away free memberships to like Oprah, anybody that was coming into town. Like all of a sudden I'm seeing Jimmy Buffett, Danny Glover, all these, Jesse Jackson, all these people were getting these complimentaries, right? To try to say hype it up. And it's like, I wonder if Michael was actually trained there to see if he can see any guys playing. No.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Hey, inside information.
But that being said, it inspired me from a physiology standpoint and a kinesiology standpoint, and then sports of obviously being in this environment. I'm a young, wide open, and I actually wrote up a service plan, a fitness service plan, and the guy gave me a director position within 6 months of me starting, of just getting certified as a trainer. And I was coming out of advertising.
Right.
And so I saw that need, what you were, right, that frustration, and you actually had compassion and cared about what you were doing to help people and make it happen. See it in front of your eyes. And there's nothing more, there's nothing more inspirational, right? Than seeing somebody get it and accomplish their goals. And they're just like, it's a great experience. It's like a purpose of life, right? To know that you're passing that juice on. And it's even more powerful these days because we know that in terms of our overall health and wellness, and from a mental health standpoint, I know it saved me in terms of channeling all that energy that I had. If it's doubt, anxiety, depression, or whatever, like get moving, just push it out. And that balance of brain chemistry, that along with, with the mechanics we know, nutrition and exercise and movement. And then I always say, like, listen, it's like a fitness cocktail. You have your set of circumstances and you're looking to like, oh, I want to be able to garden. I want to play tennis. I want to keep playing tennis. I want to do this or that. And it's the idea of like, okay, like you mentioned with your club services, right? How do we offer those modalities so people can be like that a la carte when you go to a restaurant? Oh, I'm going to have an appetizer of this and that, and then I'll have my main course there. And so it's the same thing. It's like being able to have people have more options. And of course, you have that traditional blue plate special where you talk about your Get Fit 101.
Right.
Hey, come in here. This is what we have to offer. But you don't have to go off huge direction and try to experiment with some of this. But you get in here, get a taste, get a feel. And I guarantee there's some other tasty things that are going to make sense for, that analogy of just your offerings.
Yeah.
So, what attracts people to a good restaurant? Consistency, something that's known to be delivered consistently.
Yes.
And then spicing it up with a variety of options here and there. But most importantly, the people who are serving you.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I mean, again, I in terms of being a manager, how have you've managed this idea of like, I want to be an entrepreneur. You manage like everything from baking your equipment in your oven to storing it to seeing that vision. How was your journey into now you're like, after you have trainers working for you, you're managing a facility. How's that managerial type entrepreneur thing? What lessons have you learned with that?
You have to be able to look at everybody and their strengths and appreciate them for who they are and build each individual person you work with. You have to get your own relationship with them. Everybody's going to be different. I am grateful, and I think you would agree with this, for the wonderful staff we have. We're all different, but we are all, at the end of the day, good people. There's no doubt about that, and I'm grateful for that. But like I was saying, with relationships with each individual person, my job being the person that kind of leads the facility, now that I have these relationships and I know what my strengths of the trainers are, from what my perspective is, and you have to figure out again how to put all of it together to work together as a team. And that is one of the things that I'm still evolving with, and things I really want to work on more in the oncoming year is how we can all have this perfect relationship together to put the client first and foremost as number one, but can share that knowledge together and do more things as a team and bring that together. Because at the end of the day, the buck starts and stops with me of getting those motivational things together and getting everyone working together. And with my other company, one of the things I do want to focus more on this year is getting all my trainers and improving my relationship with each one, and taking more of the charge of gelling everything together, more so to benefit the clients. So I think as you go through in the managerial process, you've got to learn how to be compassionate with everybody. You've got to also be tough when you need to be tough.
Right.
That is a tough one to learn. Yeah. I can tell you, it's so funny. I think a lot of my clients would say, I say, I love every one of my clients and all my trainers. What we have at Absolute is such a great, unique community, and it makes me appreciate it so much more, because on the flip side of that, you're talking about managing that. My other company, where I sell gym equipment, because I have to sell to other gym owners, and sometimes they're a little more egotistical than the average bear. Especially some of these guys are really testosterone-y. They test your patience sometimes. And sometimes when I deal with the public, and not just those demographic, but everybody's kind of got this weird entitlement thing when they want to buy things.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. It got better. It got worse after COVID.
Do they assume that exercise equipment should just be cheap or something? That it's like nobody buys it and.
I can tell you some funny stories, and I'll just, I'll save those for private another time. But where people just have this really weird sense of entitlement, and I deal with some really jerk people. Okay, so at the end of my day, especially when I'm splitting my day between one company and coming over to train my clients at night,
right? I
appreciate all of you and my clients so much more. I'm like, it's like a breath of fresh air. I'm like, thank you for not being a jerk.
It's a toxic energy.
It's like a toxic energy, and that's one of the reasons that throughout 2025, my main focus is to really get Absolute Fitness to where I envision it. It's already really good, but I want to make it even better.
Yeah.
And I know that starts with me, and that's part of the process, is getting everybody on the same page. So again, I think with any business, it's always a learning process. It's a growing entity. So I'm looking forward to where we go next year.
Yeah. And it's like that old thing where, okay, number one, are you passionate about what you're doing?
Yeah.
And you can see that right away when somebody's in it for the money and the prestige, and they're not passionate about something.
Right.
So I can say for sure that there's all passionate people there working. Mm-hmm. Right. That's why the energy is able to be what it is. Mm-hmm. Number one, and then of course we don't realize, and I think we all realize it every day, that as we observe and we're into our passionate, things that we're experimenting, playing with, mm-hmm. you'll see something else and you'll get creative and whatever, and it just feeds on itself. And, providing these kind of tools, these experiences. Mm-hmm. And so when a group of people that love what they do, and pretty much when they're okay with themselves, they can be comfortable and okay with other people being okay with themselves, mm-hmm. fellow passionate people. Mm-hmm. And then that's energy is invaluable because you know right away if somebody's coming in trying to put a square peg in a round hole, and it's like, why are you doing this?
Absolutely.
So that's one thing that does not happen at Absolute. I can tell you that, and so that's why it's a pleasure. And I look forward to waking up every day and going to see my clients, the clients I have at this point, every day. It's refreshing. It's a place that, my old man, God bless him, he said, recreation, it's a time to recreate yourself. You're not at home. You're not at work. You're not a father. You're not this or that. You're a human being getting out of breath, challenging yourself physically, opening up your mind to like challenge you to do some feat or task or skill set that allows your brain, right, to just kind of relax and breathe the air, and to do that with a team of professionals that are encouraging that and have this ample energy that's just kind of permeating. And then it's what most these, I think that customers and our clients, they not used to. They're used to experiencing all kinds of other kinds of negative energy and experiences in those big box gyms or places that are like, it's not, everybody's sort of like, I could say that Midwest is a lot more friendly than Los Angeles because I've worked in every, major
Absolutely.
arena, right? So there's something beautiful about Midwestern mentality, but there's also something about the Midwestern work ethic, which I can speak on, that it's nothing like the Midwest work ethic. There's nothing like a Midwest general attitude. But, when you can find a place, discover what you love to do, find a place to do it, and have people around you that also complementary to that, that's priceless.
Yes.
And it's not even work. It's a life to be experienced, and all I see is a lot of passionate, professional people around me, your staff, and as I've been spending time in the facility, high respect for it, totally appreciate it because it's just you can't just find that around any corner. So I myself think that Absolute Fitness in this facility here, probably the best in the city.
I appreciate
as much
that.
as I know.
Yeah.
And with I know your focus and your now you laid it out for me and all the listeners, right? Potential customers come check us out, check Mike's place out. If we can improve on that, we're just talking like, it's like it's almost like the cat's meow in terms of I feel very fortunate, and I really love having you on the podcast.
Thank you.
Because I wanted to take that opportunity to thank you.
Well, I thank you and for being a big part of our a big part of the gym, and we love having
addition,
you here. And the
right?
new addition, yeah. And this has been a lot of fun. I mean, this is great. This has been fun, and just spreading a positive message. The world we live in nowadays, I just kind of feel like, we need more positivity. Spread that shit like peanut butter,
right?
Everywhere you can go, smile at people, I try to do that. Just smile.
Okay, I'm going to say something here. Okay, so another shout out to Larry Pacifico, right? Larry, we love you. It's like when you think about historical like fitness and wellness, right? I mean, Larry like basically baked that bread and fired the oven up, and it's in here in Dayton. And you're talking about spreading peanut butter. I spent some time running around the country, seeing learned all kinds of skills, had all kinds of experiences. And I like to think I'm coming back with some jelly.
I love it. It's a symbiotic relationship,
And it's priceless, man.
Yeah, and back to Larry, I mean, in a big way, I used to love working out at his Champions Gym back in the 90s and the early 2000s. And, what Larry had built with the small training facilities, Club Champions and whatnot, is kind of what inspired me to continue to do what I do. And it's great to have Larry train his clients, his South clients at Absolute Fitness, because they kind of feel like I came full circle.
And that guy doesn't mess around.
No.
I have never seen a more focused professional in my entire career.
He's a great guy.
He makes me at times question like me not goofing off, but like being. I like to have a nice, enjoyable time and create a vibe and energy. But boy, that is one professional, and I have a lot of respect for that, and
Yeah.
that's admirable.
Absolutely. He definitely he's definitely a business guy. Definitely, like I said, it's definitely his work that he did with champions in the years. Definitely inspired me to kind of do what I did with Absolute. So it's kind of funny how life comes full circle, and now it's great to see him in the facility, and that he enjoys Absolute Fitness as well for the South clients, and a big part of that. And I've told him this was he inspired that. So
Nice.
it's kind of cool how that works out.
Passing it forward.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Mike, what's the best way? Don't you have a website? The specific? How would somebody wanted to contact you to get a consult or whatever, get more information?
You can always go to DaytonPersonalTraining.com. Easy one to remember. You can always email at info@Absolute Fitness Ohio, or call us at 937-302-9054.
Nice.
Yep.
So, well, listen, I look forward to some future conversations and explore, all the realms of potential, and looking forward to being a player on your team.
I'm looking forward to having all of that.
And it's very much appreciated. And again, I hope listeners between Larry, me, Mike's staff, what he's doing over there in Kettering, and obviously you people there in Centerville, watch out. So it's been a real pleasure.
I appreciate it. Thank you much.
All right, man. So, all right, listeners, that's be it for today. All right, kids, take care. Till next time. Bye-bye.
Professor.